So you'd like to sell strategy to your clients and you're like, that's awesome, they gave me money, but what do I do now? That's what we're going to go into in this video. We're going to talk about how to structure a strategy workshop that your clients love. In my last video, I covered how to sell strategy when you don't have a personal brand. The idea is to take a cold prospect through a structure that guided them on the logical conclusion that they needed strategy before they hired you for your core service. In this video, we're going to talk about the 3 parts of a strategy workshop: before, during, and after. These are critical in the client perceiving that the strategy was worth the investment. The before phase of your strategy workshop needs to set everything up so that you and the client are prepared for a successful outcome. So let's go into the prerequisites of a successful workshop. One is having the right people in the room. You need to make sure that the people that are involved are the stakeholders, not just, say, a business owner, but all the people on the client side that should have an input on the direction of the project you're working on. Hopefully it's the highest level people in the company. If you don't have the high level people from the company involved in the strategy workshop, it's actually not going to amount to much because there's not going to be any buy-in from the upper management. And for many of you, you're going to be working with smaller businesses, so then you need the CEO or the owner, or usually that's the same person. You need that person in the room involved in this workshop. But you don't want just that person's opinion, their thoughts, their perspective. You need at least 3 or 4 other people involved in this workshop so that they can provide their perspective. Say someone from customer service can give an idea of what the customer actually goes through, the kind of complaints that happen, things like that. Then on the tech side, well, what kind of support can tech in that company actually provide to this project? Marketing or sales, having somebody from those departments be able to give their input so that you actually have a strong understanding of where this company is and where they want to go. Also in the before phase is things like the structure. How is this strategy actually structured? How many days? Or if it's a single day, how many hours? What hours are actually involved? Is it 8 a.m. to noon, or say 10 a.m. to 2? Some kind of time frame where they understand I need to block out my time to be a part of this workshop. Another aspect is it online, or are you doing this in person? Do they need to come to you, or do you go to the client? This needs to be determined ahead of time before you actually get into the workshop. I know that sounds obvious, but a lot of these details are left unsaid. So you need to make sure that everything is outlined for your client so they truly understand it. As part of the structure, you need to be a time lord. You need to be methodical about that time. If you say a segment of your workshop is going to take 40 minutes, then it stops at 40 minutes. You can always stop a section early, but you should never go longer. And there's 2 reasons that this is important. One is that you don't want to get off track. If you get off track, you're either going to go long and your client isn't prepared for that, or you're going to have to cut out parts of your strategy sessions that need to be there. They need to be involved. And then the second part is a client trusts you more if you keep on schedule, because then it actually shows them you know what you're doing. That's the perception that they're going to get. Even if this is the first time you've ever done it, they will go, oh, this makes sense. They have kept us on track and going from one stage to the next stage, just like on the agenda they gave us before the workshop. Other things you have to consider is what kind of homework do you and the client have to do. You may need to do interviews with some of the stakeholders before you ever get there to have a concept of some of the things that you need to be prepared for. For me, I have a product called 360 Deep Discovery, and I need to see their financials to be able to go really deep into my clients' businesses. Those finances take me a good solid 2 or 3 hours to really get into, to comprehend any opportunities or any problems, any red flags that show up in their numbers. It gives me the opportunity to analyze that and then come prepared to be able to fix their financials or even guide some of their investment ideas, like reinvesting in their business, where that should happen by going through their financials. If I was to wait to do the financials in the during phase while the workshop's going on, then there'd be a lot of sitting around of me just sitting there reading numbers and trying to figure stuff out. There are parts that would be nice to be able to ask some certain questions like, why this expense? Why did you invest in that? Where did this money go? Where did this money come from? Things like that would be kind of helpful, but it's not 2 or 3 hours helpful. So that's why I do it in the before phase. The during phase, this is the part, the actual workshop. What are you doing? The steps that you need to cover. And I break this into 3 parts: purpose, people, and path. Purpose is why this project? What's the business objectives? Why are we talking? Why are we in this workshop? I need to have a good understanding of the purpose of the company. People covers the players involved on the business side and on the customer side. We tend to dive mostly into the customer side. Ideal target customer, customer personas, and market research. The path section of your workshop is where are we going with all this? We dove into your purpose. We figured out who the people are and what their user journey is. On path, where are we going? What's the future hold? What kind of projects do we need to focus on to actually get the objectives of the company and the objectives of the customers? In purpose, we're going to ask a lot of why questions. We want to really dive deep into what's going on here, because your client reached out to you and they had some idea that there was something wrong or that there was an opportunity to be had. Maybe a little of both. And then they reached out to you and they told you, I need web design, or I need Facebook ads, or whatever it is your core service is. They told you, I need that thing. And you did the right thing. You pushed back and said, we have to diagnose what's going on first. We can't just make you a website. We can't just make ads for you. We can't just create a new brand message for you. We have to dive into, well, what's really going on? And so that's what that first section is. Sometimes you can get through that in, say, an hour to 2 hours of discussion and interaction and collaboration with the stakeholders in the beginning. Then you would be able to move into the next stage where you'll spend a lot more time, which is the people section. You need to understand the customer journey. You have to understand where that customer's coming from and where they need to go to actually meet the business purpose, the business objectives. The great part about the people section is that it's a lot more collaborative. You get to have the stakeholders actually participate. They get to be creative. They get to even draw, they get to doodle, they get to actually get involved in the creation of who their customer persona is, the ideal target clients that they've worked with, the most profitable products that these people buy, and if there's any market expansion to be had. This can be really fun. It can be a great time and a really relaxing time if you facilitate it properly. You get everybody involved so they're not just sitting there having an interview. You're not just interviewing them questions. You're actually having them put pen to paper, markers, and on a dry erase board, drawing and putting down Post-it notes with their concepts and having everyone vote on those ideas. This is a great time to have a lot of interactivity. Then we take this collaboration into path. We don't create the path for our client. We have the client create the path with us. So the stakeholders that are in the workshop, they get to participate in the creation of the strategy. Where are we going? We've talked about our purpose, we've talked about our people, so let's collaborate on what projects make the most sense to achieve the objectives that we've uncovered. Another way that you could describe path would be goal setting. What's the goals that we're going to achieve, and what time frame do we think we need to achieve those goals? I really want to stress that this is about you facilitating the creation of the strategy and not actually making it for your client. If you find yourself doing a lot of preaching, a lot of talking and teaching and describing, then you're not doing your facilitation correctly. What you need to be doing is drawing these projects out of your clients. It's a very Socratic method. But when you find that they're stumbling, or that they do the natural thing and just go back to their old ideas, then that's when you can step in, because by this time you've established yourself as the authority. You are the guide that is going to take them where they want to go. I think the after phase is far more important than the first two phases. And the reason is, it's all about momentum. You need to keep your client moving. You need to keep them excited because they've just done this workshop. They're hyped. They've learned new things about their business. They've learned new things about their products. They've learned new things about their customers. And they are hyped on the projects that have been outlined in the path. And then everything just kind of falls apart. If you let the momentum drop, your client will get busy. Your client has a business to run. Your client has a lot of work to do. And it's on you to keep it moving, not you delivering some report and then just sitting around waiting. You keep it moving. In the after phase, you need to have pre-described steps, and you're going to let the client know this in advance, even in the before stage. What's going to happen after the workshop? And if you can get it on their calendar of the steps that are going to happen after the workshop, perfect, because afterwards they're going to start working with you on the next phase, which could be a website, it could be your Facebook advertising, it could be your brand messaging. Whatever your core service is, they're likely to have booked you to start doing it. They want to keep the momentum going. Sure, they might still want to haggle with you on price, and they might want to try to start dictating some terms and forget about some of the stuff that they covered in the workshop, but you stay in control. The after phase is all about keeping that momentum, which means you have to stay in control of it. Beyond meetings and keeping momentum, you need to have physical things that are going to keep them engaged. You need a report of what happened at that workshop. They're excited. So the faster you can get that report back to them, especially the stuff that is recommended, the path, the things to go forward, and what that is going to cost, moving into the next stage of the project with your client. This could be a creative brief. Say if you're doing web design or branding, you may have a creative brief that comes out of the path that you created during the workshop. Or if you do advertising, you may have campaign concepts that you're going to deliver. And the faster you can get those back to the client, the more momentum you're going to keep. For the work I do, I give homework to my clients to get them working on something that we identified during the path in the deep discovery. I get them working on one or two things that they need to have ready by the time we do our first coaching call. If they don't get that done, well, then we can reschedule the coaching call. It's very important that I keep a structure around them. So if I say, oh, it's okay you didn't complete that homework before our first call, well, then that's going to let them know that maybe I don't really have a process. They're not going to like working with me long term because they're going to start feeling like, oh, the structure is pretty darn loose. And that tends to lead to thoughts like, well, maybe that person's not really an expert. So you have to keep a structure around your client at all times so that they feel like this is expert process, that this is a procedure that is going to get them the outcome they desire. I know I just covered a whole bunch of stuff and probably leaving you with as many questions as answers that you got. But that's okay. This is a process. You're not going to create perfection right out of the gate. I just wanted to give you the basic structure of how to run your own workshop. And if you do some homework, which is sit down, write out what you need to do in your purpose, people, and path sections of your workshop. What questions do you need to ask? What kind of exercises can you do with your client to elicit the answers that you need to guide them to the next stage of their business? Let me guide you to that like button, subscribe, share, comment, and do all the socials. And let's meet each other right back here in the next video.